We are rolling in 3, 2, 1, action.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Weekday, the number one podcast for talking about yarmulkes in the world. I'm Andy.
We were talking about yarmulkes.
We were talking about yarmulkes, and that's why this is not weird at all. Welcome to the Weekday. This is episode 28 of...
Is there a yarmulke
There is a yarmulke.
podcast? No. I know.
Oh, is
I
there
know
a
there
yarmulke
is
podcast?
a yarmulke. Can
Okay.
we
Yarmulke.
weekenders? No, weekdayers. Sorry.
Weekdayers.
Weekday army.
You will be happy to know, in this cross-promotion,
Yeah.
on iHeart.com, there is something called the Hatcast. And they only did one episode. It's a podcast about hats.
Okay.
Two people discuss hats and hat-related subjects.
Of course there is.
And their cultural implications in a discursive manner.
Yeah. Discursive.
Episode 28
Is
from
that-
October 19th, 2018, wherein we discuss forms of headwear worn by certain adherents of the Jewish religion.
All right.
There you go.
Of course.
Link in the show notes.
I do think I wonder if there's just like maybe we start a thing where just like we throw at a topic and like surely there's got to be a podcast about this topic.
That's a discursive manner.
Yeah,
Okay. Do me a favor.
Yeah.
In the comments of this, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or bayhope.tv, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Apple Music, you can always hit us up on our socials as well. Give us a topic, and we'll see if there's a podcast out there.
And we'll talk about it on our podcast.
Yes.
About a podcast. So we'll go through and we'll like look to see, if this topic is a podcast on the podcast.
So I listen to a podcast. I listen to a number of podcasts, but one of my favorites, this is going to sound real nerdy, it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
Yep. Yeah. You weren't wrong.
It's actually, and I'm not recommending the podcast because it's a kind of adult podcast.
Explicit in nature.
It is explicit in language only.
In discursive. It's discursively explicit.
It's called the Adventure Zone, and it's a totally nerdy thing, and they're making fun of it. It's by the McElroy brothers. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
No.
Anyway, they have a show about the show.
Oh.
So the show's called The Adventure Zone, and then the show about
They
the
do
show
like
is
a
called
recap podcast.
Yeah. And they love it. They get so super nerdy, and it's called the Adventure Zone. That's the name of it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to episode 28 of the Weekday. We are going to get to an actual topic
Wait,
in a minute.
can we do a wrap up podcast about the weekday
And we
and call it the weekday?
Or the weekday. How would we do that?
Yeah.
The weekday?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
What about the weekday weeknight? the weekday weeknight.
Later.
After the weekday after hours?
Yeah. Uh-huh. We call it happy hour. Yeah, we call it happy hour.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm in. Hey, we did have an actual topic I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to, again, we're our good buddy Justin Deal over there is live mixing this for us. Wave, Justin. Cool. Every time. I love it. Producer Justin over there.
Yeah.
I wanted to address something serious.
Okay.
This is very serious.
Oh.
I'm hiding behind my mic so you can't see my smile. Bayhope TV has a family of podcasts. We have the Weekday.
I know where this is going.
Do you?
Yes.
We have the Weekday. We have Meditations with Julie, who's Pastor Julie, who's our West Chase.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. West Chase campus pastor. And she does some guided meditations, and that's been on hold for a little bit, but she's hopefully coming back. We just started one today called In Plain Speech with yours truly and a bunch of others, where we're kind of discursively walking through the Bible
in a discursive manner.
Yeah, literally in plain speech. Another of the Bayhope TV family of podcasts is called Figuring It Out with Austin and Spencer. And I need to address an issue that happened last week, wherein we were called out.
We were.
Mike and I. You don't know where this is going.
I don't know. Well, I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah,
but
we were called out a little bit.
I knew where this was going to a certain extent.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to all of our crossover fans,
right,
just know that I have taken this very serious accusation to heart.
What is the accusation?
The accusation was that we're old and we're out of touch.
I don't know if that means, well, if something's true, I don't think it's an accusation. I think it's just an observation at that point.
To be fair, you did say, I don't know what this TikTok is. I still don't know how to use TikTok.
I don't know what TikTok. I still to this day I look at TikTok and I can engage with it and I'll see something, especially like the funny stuff. There's some funny stuff on TikTok, but like, I don't know how one does a TikTok. And I'm okay with that. Like, I think that's where like you've reached like an old threshold, and a threshold is is where you can still engage with it, but like in no way do I want to create or like figure out how it actually works.
That's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate your anyway. To Austin and Spencer, just know that I'm coming for you.
He has a very specific and special set of skills.
I have old man strength. No, it's all good. We cleared the air. Spencer actually in our Monday creative staff meetings, we'll talk business for a little bit, and then we actually end up praying as a big giant team. It's really cool. And we pray for the person to the side of us. And I was just so happened to be sitting on the side of Spencer that day, and Spencer prayed for me. And he actually prayed to God that I would forgive him of the beef. So Spencer, I forgive you.
Beef gone.
Yeah. Speaking of beef, we were going to talk about food and we were going to talk about all-inclusive resorts, but I don't want
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, we've got...
It's a fancy vacation.
Yeah, we've got other things to talk about. Hey, so if you've been tracking along with the Weekday for the last couple of weeks, we've been in, again, this book, Holy Roar. If you haven't already, you can go pick it up and follow along with us a little bit. Holy Roar is the 7 words that will change the way you worship. And we're in week 3. This was the 3rd week of Holy Roar.
Past week was week 3.
And by that, I mean Pastor Matthew and the worship team and the church really brought the 3rd word of worship, and that is this word zamar, Z-Z-A-M-A-R, zamar. And it means to make music, to celebrate in song and music, to touch the strings or parts of a musical instrument. And if you engaged with our services on Sunday, or if you engage with them on demand, you actually saw this guy to my right, your left, that guy right there. As an audio podcast as well. They're not going to see the face you just made. Cool. You saw him kind of be interviewed by Pastor Matthew. And I guess first things first, like, how did that go? How'd that feel?
How did that go?
You brought a clip?
Let's go. Let's watch the clip. It was great. I thought it was great. It was loose. I felt like it was very loose.
I felt like first service was way more loose than second service.
You did? You thought first service was looser?
Timing wise, second service,
timing.
Like, language wise.
Yeah, language. Okay, well, just.
I mean, you said suck on stage,
yeah,
which I thought was great. You did also say kicking butt for Jesus.
Yeah. We talked about butt kickers, which is an actual thing. It's like
it's a TM. It's butt kicker TM.
Yeah, like it's a legit thing. Like you can go on and buy one. But it's a subwoofer under your seat. And Matthew teed it up. He said, I don't even know. Like, and I said that a capital campaign would be great, like to raise money for butt kickers. He goes, oh, I don't even know what that would be called. And it was.
I mean, it was a softball.
Yeah, if I didn't take the opportunity, like I would just.
How would you have slept that night?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would have been kicking myself. And I was like, well, it's kicking butts for Jesus. Like it's right in the name.
The question that's on everyone's minds is, what was the response in the house when that happened?
People did laugh.
Okay, good.
Which was great. I think
more people were shocked that you said it.
It is fun. Like I would venture to say like I'm fairly irreverent. I appreciate reverence.
You're not like a Rick and Morty irreverent. You're like
no. But like I do, I don't know. Hopefully people wouldn't just think that I'm, like a monk or something, someone who only speaks in very like plain
hushed
terms.
tones.
Yeah, that's not my vibe. I like to
That is not your vibe.
I like to keep things loose, keep things loud.
Keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah, keep it popping.
Keeps it real.
Yeah,
You
that's you keeping it popping. But
Yeah.
Zamar is the so you'll notice a lot of the words that we've talked about are they roll into each other a little bit. Obviously, it's all about praise and praise.
Yeah.
This one specifically is about praise that happens from music, because worship's a lifestyle, man.
Yeah.
But worship is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the worship tends to come from music.
Mhm.
So like go back to the planning stages of this Sunday, because there were a number of different elements this Sunday.
Right.
Walk us through those, if you don't mind.
Walk us through them.
Like walk us through, okay, the fact that we had a young lady, Bree, playing violin. Like,
Yeah.
what was the thought process? Again, the Weekday, the only podcast that goes behind the scenes of church, the number one podcast for that.
Well, I think I want to ask you a couple questions about this too.
Great.
I was this whole week of the zamar, I kept thinking about people who don't play music. So like my wife, Kristen, who you know.
Who?
Kristen.
How do you spell that?
She doesn't play music. You know that.
I did know that.
You met her. And I kept thinking about this because this topic is honestly like, it's kind of a weird one for people who don't play music. Like, how do I connect with God by playing music? Like, if I don't play music, you know? And so I was like, how do we represent what this actually means within the service, you know? And so my thought was to like have almost like Bree playing violin be sort of like the avatar for somebody else, you know? Like it's a very
great movie.
The cartoon, right?
The airbender, the violin bender. She was the violin bender.
Asif Madvi,
yeah,
as the villain.
They got the spinoff coming too.
So I was like, in my head, I was like, she's going to be singing the melodies. So like, she played the doxology.
Yep.
She played the vocal line of "We Praise You," you know, on violin, and then she also played "Agnus Dei," the vocal line of the vocal melody of that. And so, just my idea was like singing through an instrument, you know, and having it sort of be a representation of that.
That's cool.
But like, I was this whole like I said, I've been struggling with like, what does it mean for people who don't play an instrument specifically to actually connect with this? And like, I feel like, you know, Pastor Matthew and I, like, we were able to talk about like the music portion and sort of drill down deep into the music aspect of it. But like, I also think that, you know, if we're to like, how does like a normal person who doesn't play music, you know, 90% of people, you know, or I don't know, it could be a totally made up statistic.
75% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
But like, you know, a large percentage of people, like my wife, who you know,
asterisk, who you know,
you know, like, but I was just thinking, like, I feel like whatever we are doing, like, we are instruments of God, and like whatever we are doing, we can do to the best of our ability, and it is as if we are playing an instrument skillfully, the way that, you know, zamar is telling us to do in a form of worship, as a form of praise. So I just, what are your thoughts on this past weekend as sort of like almost like instrumental worship, you know, the word zamar?
I was told by my violin instructor while in middle school that only 20% of people in the country could read music.
Who said that?
John Van Patten on Quora.
Okay.
So somebody asked what percentage of people in the world play an instrument. And
there you go.
You can't answer it.
Okay.
It's unanswerable. It's weird because I, as worship pastor, former worship pastor, turned guy who looks at screens all day.
Right.
It's weird for me because I don't get a whole lot of opportunity to play music anymore. Even at home, like I don't play a whole lot of music at home just because like I get home and then
well, life happens.
Yeah, like kids need to. There's track meets that take all night, and then soccer practice, and then dinner. You know, everybody's got the things. So I don't even play that much at home, and so it's weird because I feel that. Whereas you and Melissa Minor, our sister, who incidentally is preaching in a couple weeks, and I got a chance to kind of help her on some bits and pieces of her sermon, and she was asking me for some stuff on this, and I heard what she's going to preach about.
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
Yeah,
this could be real good. But I feel a little bit distant from it, if I'm being honest, because the music is there. Like I have rhythm. I know I have rhythm. You have rhythm. Like we have rhythm, but like I have been connecting less through music lately than I used to because I'm not around it as much. And yet on Sunday, I was in an online, I had 7 different player windows open with 7 different things happening at the same time. And it was one of the Sundays that everything truly clicked for people online.
Yeah.
and by Sundays I mean like the whole entire week as well,
Sure.
like just everything that comes
Yeah.
back from it, comments that are flying in on our YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's one of the ones that truly connected, and I think that is because, kind of like Matthew said, there's that innate thing inside of everybody that knows that music is a language of something.
Mhm.
You know, there's an unseen realm that is tapped by
Yeah.
the musical expression of worship.
Yeah.
And I would even go so far as to say that um it is a siren's call to look at the God that created you,
Right.
because music is an otherworldly thing, and you know that. I think you brought up the idea of like go watch a movie without
Right.
music on. Like it's awful.
Yeah.
It's terrible. The Blair Witch Project. Like I was just thinking, I thought of that when you brought that up.
Yeah.
Like that intentionally had no music in
Right.
it because it was designed to be horrifying.
Sure.
And it was like
Yeah.
when I watched it, it
Well,
was
yeah, 'cause- yeah,
horrifying.
mhm. Because there was no music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's super cool. So then for, I guess, going forward for you guys, like how do you zamar with the congregation? Like so if 20% of people know how to read music, how do you translate that to the other 80%? You know what I mean? Like okay, for your wife, how do you engage your wife in music?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that playing, like, and this is kind of where it starts to break off a little bit, because I do think music is something that pretty much everybody enjoys at some level. I don't think that there's like, I don't feel like I've ever met a person like, yeah, I just don't really like music. And, I think that there are kind of like what you're saying, like there's shades of times when you're engaged with it, when you're not engaged with it.
Right.
But you would never say, I don't like music.
No, this morning at staff meeting, we were singing "Be That My Vision,"
Yeah.
and we got to I get the opportunity to play bass for staff meeting. It's great. That's like one of the best parts of the week. And we built up towards the end of "Be Thou My Vision," and then I got to verse 4, and it's "High King of Heaven."
Yeah.
My
victory won.
My victory won, and like we hit the note and let it ring out, and then that was one of those like, okay, I'm just gonna do that, like go for it, and like that was one of those, again, those little transcendent moments that I get,
Mhm.
and so like that, I still like I have those moments.
Yeah. Well, like I think that people do. Like there is something about music that God intentionally has us around. It's not a great way to say that, but I mean, music, especially as an art form, is permeated throughout the entire Bible. God, it's one of like the only like art forms that God commands people to actually take part in. And
I've never thought of that.
yeah, and like there's something different. It literally changes the physics of a room. The way that like something visual does not, because if you look at a painting or even something on a screen, like all it's doing is either reflecting light or giving off light. You are not actually changing the physicality of the room. But like with sound, like all sound is manipulating airwaves among you. It's manipulating the atmosphere around you. So when even my voice speaking, what you strum a guitar or whatever, like it is physically manipulating the space around you. And like I think that
I've never thought about that.
We respond to that, like it just, and then but then it reflects so much of who our God is too, because like what is great about music is when it's ordered and when it's like beautifully composed and woven together, and there's ebbs and there's flows, and like there's ups and there's downs. Like it is, I'm getting goosebumps since thinking about it, because it's so weird. Like music is such a part of our life, that like I sometimes just treat it as like this friend that's always there.
Yeah.
But like I don't ever stop to think about the relationship that it has actually, like the investment music has actually played into my life, and how much I actually am affected by.
I mean, you literally have a career path.
Yeah,
based
I
on
know.
it.
Well, and it's so like even though I am in music, like I still don't listen to it as much as I probably should. Like I don't surround my kids with it as much as I probably should. It becomes sort of just this like thing that I carry around rather than like something that I engage with outside of just like on Thursday or Sunday or when I'm preparing or for whatever.
2 points. I don't want to let that one go. So remind me of that real quick. But in the chat, one of the places I had asked, so we were talking, and it was like towards the end of one of the songs, and I just threw out there like, "Hey, this week we're talking about instrumental music, specifically like music, not songs. Like we'll talk about songs later. We'll talk about like bits and pieces, but like, what is the most moving piece of music that has ever affected you in your life?" And as I was typing that, I wrote it, and then I answered my own question just to kind of get the ball rolling. And I said Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber. Like and I still can listen to that and be in a moment in time where I was weeping like a child because that thing just built. If you've again, I could probably put it in show notes, so you can go look there, and I'll have Adagio something.
Yeah.
But like
it's super popular. Like
everybody's heard it. Adagio for Strings or Adagio for Winds, but I particularly like the strings version of it. The winds, just whatever, it's fine.
Well, it wasn't written for winds.
Right, it was written for strings, and it's just this beautiful flowing, and it just seems like there's no time, but all of a sudden something hits, and then something breaks, and then it's just this welling of emotion, and it's just all this other stuff. So, how about you? For you, what's your?
I have a couple because I was thinking about this, but as we were preparing for this weekend, if Matthew was going to ask that question. So, actually, it's really cool that like the doxology. One of the reasons we did the doxology this weekend was because I remember in Bellerive, at the beginning of one of our songs called "Sing," which is an instrumental. Because like I think that we sort of understood this concept as a band without ever like fully defining it. But like it's like, hey, let's do an instrumental song. Let's call it "Sing," and let it have it be like whatever represent kind of whatever anybody wants. And so it's just this idea that built over years, honestly. And so at the beginning of it, just sort of this pad and sort of like random things happen. And it almost like is supposed to represent like the beginning of creation. So like, just sort of chaotic stuff happening here or there. But like, I remember just thinking like, I'm just going to play the doxology over this. And so like, I'd play the doxology, and you can go and listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. But I remember sitting in the studio recording that, and like, as I'm recording it, feeling tears come down. Cause I was just like, this is so moving to me right now. That like the words of the doxology, like praise God from all things, like it was coming through music without anybody having to say the words. And like where we were and what we were doing, I was like, this is just amazing. Like, this is so cool. And then another one is, I remember in 9th grade, we went to go see the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra in my wind ensemble. And we were playing a concert at the actual Atlanta Symphonic Hall or whatever. I don't remember what it's called. But the night before, the ASO was doing a concert. And so they played a Tchaikovsky maybe symphony. But then they also did a song by Rachmaninoff called "Isle of the Dead." Yeah. And I remember, and it's technically called a tone poem. And Rachmaninoff, if you follow, if you follow any sort of classical music, he's one of the later classical romantic Russian composers. So towards the end of the 20th century, early 21st century, so like 1900s, he composed this tone poem called "Isle of the Dead." And I remember the composer, after they did it, or maybe before they did it, he was talking about it. And it's this really cool, like 20-minute piece of this like ebbing and flowing. It almost feels like waves. It goes ba-na-na-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na-na-na. And so, but there's just this rhythm, and he said what it's supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel like an irregular heartbeat, or someone that, I mean, this is a little dark here, but someone who's like
he's a dark dude.
Well, someone who's like kind of on the deathbed and like, struggling for breath or whatever. And so, and it's actually in 7/8. So the whole song is in 7/8. And like, it sort of just feels like the waves come and then they sort of go away. And then you're waiting for the wave to come. And I remember just being like so moved by like the description of what he was saying played so perfectly into how the music was written. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And like being enamored that you could communicate a message simply through musicality.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
Yeah.
And especially classical music can be so complex and so dumb some of the times, like just so like highbrow and so arrogant and all that but then you stumble onto stuff like this and it's like, oh my gosh, like especially someone who wrote it, almost like 150 years ago, 140 years ago now. It feels so current even now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
For me, that's Debussy's La Mer.
WC, I mean, like perfect.
It's It's the same time.
Well,
too.
impressionistic.
Yep.
Yeah, like the French impressionistic was late Roman,
Yep.
or sorry, late Russian romanticism.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I used to fall asleep to Debussy's La Mer, and I would always be around. I can't ever remember the name of the track, but I'd listen to like the first 10 minutes, which is like this upbeat whatever thing that's going on, and then it would just almost like it would allow my heart to quicken.
Yeah.
And it was almost like exercise, and then it would just like it would start to trail off, and it's supposed to be that the sands are coming back into the sea and all this, and that would be just like me easing off into sleep, and I'd always like fall asleep right then. Like so I could listen to it now and just it's affecting. Last question I want to ask is you had talked about surrounding your kids with music. I think we are anomalies in that we didn't reject what our parents loved.
Yeah.
And I think they didn't surround us with music like we could have been.
Sure.
Because we were surrounded, but it was always like just there. It was just
on.
kind of like, it was just on. Like, and I do the same thing with my kids. Like we were eating dinner, there's music in the background. We're doing dishes, there's music in the background. Like I just do it with them. I never understood that until like literally just now thinking about it. Do you think that if you surrounded your kids with it and pushed it on them, that they would reject it?
I don't know. They're
still young.
Yeah, they're still so young. So like, I don't know. I feel like their intentions would be weird, or not weird, but like each one of their intentions would probably be different on why, if they were to be still engaged with it or not still be engaged with it, because like they don't really know who they are necessarily. Like Caleb wants to do things to please Kristen and I,
right?
Who you know.
Who?
Her. And then, Luke wants to do something that Caleb doesn't want to do, or wants to do the opposite of whatever because, he just wants to be that. Right. And Ella's one.
Ella
so like, so I don't know. It'll be like, I think Caleb's getting to the age now where we're starting to talk about like, hey, what instrument do you want? And like, honestly, I know it's going to be a pain for us. One of the things I really want him to learn first is drums.
No. Trust me. No.
Well, like there's something about drums that like, if you can pick up drums early and be good at drums, like the path opens up to so many other things really easily.
I disagree.
Especially within like a band context. So like,
I disagree.
Why?
Oh, because like I disagree in only the fact that like piano for us was the first thing, and I feel like that opened up a bunch of stuff. Like I can play drums.
Yeah, but like I can't.
It's not my fault.
Well, but like look at successful musicians. Like a lot of really good successful musicians have all started out on drums.
Yeah, it's like left-handed pitchers. Like there's an opening for you.
Yeah, like the rhythmic it's almost more important for you to pick up rhythm than it is for you to pick up pitch and tone and key.
We could have a healthy debate about that.
It is. Think about it. Like you can play piano and play the right pitches and tones.
See, I would push back on that and say
Mom always said that too. That
I agree, but
rhythm was way more important than people ever get it credit for.
I agree, and I think maybe the reason I would want to have a healthy debate on this is riveting for everybody listening. But the reason I would have a pushback is that I don't think you can teach rhythm. I think you're born with it, and you can hone. If you don't have rhythm, you can hone it to a point.
But we'll find out really quickly then. So I'm pretty sure he has rhythm, and I think
he does.
Yeah,
I think I've watched him dance.
Yeah.
Like he does.
Right.
When he flosses, Mike, he keeps those hips and those. He's got good limb independence right there when he flosses.
Yeah.
But no, I'm being serious. Like we were born with rhythm, and I don't mean that like, oh, look at us. But like I have. You haven't, Melissa hasn't, Mom hasn't, Dad hasn't. Like I've never really struggled to find one.
Right.
Unless there's like just a cacophony of things going on and I can't figure out where I am. But by and large, like we know where one is.
Sure.
We know how to hit the downbeat. So go play drums, everybody.
Or not, according to Andy.
No, I think for me, like my kids, they like Grace is now like she's transitioning into piano and she's realizing like, oh, if I can play piano, I can play everything, which is great. So, but she started on guitar.
Yeah.
So
I think in general though, like there's something about learning one obviously makes it a lot easier to learn two. And then once you can relate 1 to 2, you can relate them to anything else.
It's a key at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on Zamar?
No, I thought it was. I told Pastor Matthew that I'm really glad that we actually did spend time talking about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a little biased towards it, but like I think it would have been very easy for us to just sort of like coast on past this one.
Yeah.
But I do think it's super important.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the instrumental side of it is something that doesn't get talked a lot about in churches. The actual because the focus is a lot on actually what Melissa is going to be talking about, the song,
Right.
the
lyrics, the melody, which is great,
it's all glorifying, it's all edifying, it's all poetic, it's all prayers, it's all those everythings. But the musical aspect of it as well is something that you're not striving for like perfect guitar tone. You're striving for an excellent guitar tone because God deserves our excellence.
Yeah, well, and it helps. I mean, like if we're going to have music, songs, even, it can be easily overlooked as just an accompaniment.
Yeah.
Where like. It is much better as a both and, like you can do both of those things really well to not just capture a mood or a vibe, but to really increase the influence and impact of a message. So, yeah.
That was good. That was good alliteration. We were just talking about Carrie Newhoff and alliteration and all that stuff earlier with Pastor Matthew. So there you go.
Awesome alliteration. Andy.
Magnificent Mike. Hey, Magnificent Mike Mage. There we go. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Magic Mike.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Is it?
I don't know. That made a lot of money.
Didn't make me a lot of money.
Touche.
Made me change my Instagram. So.
Used to be at Magic Mike XL, and then I had to underscore that thing somewhere. Man, people were real disappointed.
I'll just go back to Mike Mage.
Yeah, people were real disappointed when they logged on. Hey, with that, sorry, this has been a little bit of a longer episode. This is something we're super passionate about. So thanks for joining us today on episode 28 of The Weekday. Like I said, stay tuned for that other podcast called Figuring It Out, which airs tomorrow, and In Plain Speech, which aired yesterday if you're listening to this today. Love you, and we will talk to you guys next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Bay Hope TV. Be sure to like and share these videos with your friends, as it really does help this channel out. And be sure to subscribe for more Bay Hope TV content. As always, thanks for watching.